And I think a huge contributor to that is the level of oxidative stress.
We take showers to rinse off, toxins from our body.
There is definitely a link with mental health and then people going way too extreme with their plastic surgery.
It was at work. I had no boundaries. This was about 10 years ago. As you know, we use this platform to share stories of resilience. And today I have a very special guest. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Sally Allen podcast. I'm so happy you're here. This is Sally Allen, your host, and today we have a very special guest. Her name is Rachel Varga, and I want to do a special introduction because this woman is so incredibly impressive. So I'm going to read her bio, something I don't normally do, but when I feel when people have so many accomplishments and they have done so much in life that it's warranted to really share their bio in detail. So, Rachel is a double board certified aesthetic nurse. She's been a specialist since 2011 with over 20,000 procedures performed. That is very impressive, Rachel. She is also the host of the Top 20 podcast, the School of Radiance podcast, an international clinical trainer for other physicians and nurses, celebrity skin expert featured by Dave Asprey, JJ Virgin, and more. Wow. Wow. That's very impressive. Rachel is an international speaker and a 5-time academically published award winning author in the field of rejuvenative and aesthetic nursing, as well as an executive board member and a peer reviewer for USA based Plastic and Aesthetic Nursing Journal, and a regular contributor to the UK based Journal of Aesthetic Nursing. Rachel is one of the first to combine functional slowing aging techniques, biohacking, and modern medical aesthetic by teaching us how to tune into what our skin is telling us.
Yes, at the end of the day, I help people look good and feel good and slow aging in the process through always being ready, always being resilient, and of course, always being radiant.
Wow. What is this biohacking? What does that entail?
The term, the description of it is the art and science of modulating our environment to support our biology. And if we're talking about being resilient, this is actually really important to look at reducing our oxidative stressors in our air, water, lighting, and electromagnetics. And of course, detoxing things like yeast, fungi, mold, parasites, heavy metals, all sorts of things. And when we do that work, our body can, and our mind can overcome obstacles much easier because we're always looking after ourselves and purifying our environment. So it's all about environment purification to feel and look our best.
Wow, but you look amazing. Your skin looks amazing. So you're actually practicing what you preach. So thank you for that. I've been following you on social media, and that's one of the reasons why I ask you because I just love how radiant you are, and I just love how you add so much value to your audience. So with that said, I know when we go into a field or whatever it is we're doing, there's something that drives us there. What's your story?
Well, my mother is also a registered nurse. So we thought that that would be a very practical type of formal education after high school. And then after nursing, I didn't quite feel finished with learning. So then I went on to take my med school prerequisites and thought I wanted to become a doctor. So I worked very closely with a highly specialized oculoplastic surgeon, eyelid surgery and skin cancers and skin rejuvenation for about 11 years. And then I was into car crashes. So I had to completely pivot every single thing that I do and really work on my resilience and completely change my life. So sometimes when we experience obstacles or collisions, literally to collisions, neither were my fault, within a span of a year, I really went down the path to look after reducing pain and keeping my mind strong and completely pivoting. Sometimes things happen to us, and it can essentially be a nudge to, hey, do this direction instead. So I always maintain those positive emotional states in transition of moving into becoming a teacher. So oftentimes when people are in their career long enough, they feel ready to become a teacher. And that's the role I'm in as a teacher for people at home, what to do with their skin, have slow aging, and also other doctors and nurses, and do research and talk about this whole thing, the skin, the largest organ of the body. And really, I fell into this role of actually observing what a specific subset of clients of mine were doing, that they would see me. I started in the industry in 2011, and at about, I'd say 2014, I started to notice certain people required barely any rejuvenation, or they responded really quickly and didn't need much actually, and they were happier. They had something to them. So I started to actually study certain people and what they were doing in their lifestyle, body, mind, spirit, energy practices. I thought, hey, there's something here to deep beauty. And then I learned about radiance, actually, what that term means. It actually comes from Ayurveda, and it's the 10th body. So we have our body, mind, spirit, and energy, which is our first four bodies. And then in Ayurveda, radiance is the 10th body. It's this electromagnetic projection to the world of how your other systems are operating. So at the end of the day, I went from a nurse into a nursing teaching role to helping people look and feel their best. And when we look and feel our best, we're going to have better interactions with ourselves and others, and be able to cruise through life with more grace and ease.
I love that. That's so beautifully said. Well put. I have a question though. Do you think that this rejuvenation and radiation, it ties into mental health?
Rejuvenation and radiance.
Yes.
There's a couple things going on here. So when someone looks in the mirror and something bothers them, it might keep bothering them. If it's fine lines, wrinkles, hooded eyelids, sagging jawline, pigmentation, hair loss, anything and everything in regards to the way that we look, it can bother someone. And to the point where they want to do something about it. Now, here's the trick. What I love to see is that when people are doing the inner work, they're reducing oxidative stress, they have low inflammation in their body, and then they say things like, I want to look as good as I feel. Mm. There is definitely a link with mental health, and then people going way too extreme with their plastic surgery and rejuvenation. I mean, we've all seen that walking down the street in certain cities or on the big screen. And when we look at ourselves, not just in the physical part, but we really like who's looking back at us, we're going to be more likely to have better relationships and better interactions with ourselves and others. And the funny thing is, when we look after the biggest organ of our body and start to notice, oh, that's a new rash. Oh, the eczema, psoriasis, and acne or melasma is coming back. That's actually an indicator that something's going on inside. So when we start to notice those things, we can catch them and purify our environment so that it doesn't end up impacting our brain, our central nervous system, if you will. So the skin tells us so much about what's going on. Mental health is absolutely on the rise over recent years for various reasons. And I think a huge contributor to that is the level of oxidative stress that people have in their home life, in their office life, physical, non-physical. But in my research, I've identified 4 key areas: toxicity in air, water, lighting, and electromagnetics. And when I started to do this work, my brain started to work better. I started to feel really good. And my skin totally shifted, as well as, an extra 10 pounds that just was not budging. Then I added detoxing to the mix, and that 10 pounds just melted off. So when we look in the mirror and we like who we see, both from our heart and also physically, of course, that's going to impact our our happiness levels and our mental health.
One of the terminology you use here, oxidative stress. How do we identify that? And I know you talked about radiation and you talked about the water and toxicity, but in the home, if you were looking, you're like, what would be considered oxidative stress and what would cause it?
Toxins. So in the air, we actually, our bodies take in most heavy metals through our air, whether it's from industrial processes or vehicles or other things, as well as in the air. Oftentimes, there's things like mold floating around. And when it rests on the skin, it can create some skin disturbances and actually tells your skin cells to die faster. So, what we can do about it to reduce oxidative stress from that level, what oxidative stress does is it initiates a cell danger response, and then we get inflammation. And as you probably have heard, stress is one of the number one contributors to various types of diseases. So it all starts with oxidative stress and inflammation. So if we can reduce that by maybe first starting with air purification and washing our face in the AM and PM to get those things off, as well as regular showering and bathing. Same thing goes with rinsing off the energy of the day, right? You've probably heard that saying as well. So, keeping your body clear, keeping your mind clear, your energy clear. But that's one place to start with reducing oxidative stress and inflammation in the body is through air purification. And then there's water, there's lighting, there's electromagnetics, and all those other things too, which I'm happy to get into.
Yeah, no, I know. With our mental wellness company, I am in a mental wellness project, and one of the things we always tell people is that inflammation is the root cause of a lot of diseases, and I can see how it comes from the air pollution, the cars, and all of that. So totally can relate to what you're saying. But one of the things you said, rinsing off the energy. I know we take showers to rinse off toxins from our body, but give us some tips on how to rinse off the energy. I like that term.
Oh, yeah. Well, this is part of some of the things I do behind the scenes from a consciousness perspective, as well as energy and spiritual and all of that. One of the things that we know is actually grounding outside is really good for the body's electromagnetics. It's actually really helpful for the blood. So I'll get it more into that if we deep dive on EMFs. But cleansing through salt, so taking Epsom salt baths, I do that with a little bit of borax, a little bit of baking soda, or get in the ocean. It's really good for our etheric field. So, say, for example, you had a difficult conversation with someone and it kind of rattled you, it kind of got your nervous system fired up. It's a really good idea just to, say a little prayer, leave the energy of that person over there. Because really, what radiance is, through what I've learned and seen and observed in so many people and seen it myself, is really keeping yourself clear non-physically as well. And that can also play into the music that we listen to or the shows that we watch. The things that we occupy our minds with, are they positive? Are they lending to being in a positive emotional state? And this takes training. It's not always easy to clear out those negative thoughts, but it is important to learn how to cultivate that so that when you are in a tricky conversation, you're connecting with somebody, you don't really feel like you have shared values, something to really connect on, then that can be a signal to kind of protect your energy and make your exit. I have this in and out strategy that I do in conversation. I work with a lot of really highly intuitive and empathic people. And sometimes, if you work in mental health, I'm sure you're fully aware of this, but really empathic people tend to actually attract people that love to drain our energy. So it's about having really good boundaries around that, with salt clearing, with prayer, and also just knowing when it's a good match or it's not so good of a match when you're in communication or in a relationship and all of that.
Yeah. Up until a few years ago, Rachel, I have to tell you, I just thought this whole energy clearing and energy in self was just hocus pocus because I never really paid attention to myself and how I was responding to things going on around me. I wasn't intentional. And once I started paying attention, one of the things I noticed For example, I have a friend who's going through something really hard. And before I go into a coaching session, that's not somebody I can talk to because they take my energy and they impart their negative energy onto me. And I started I'm glad I realized years ago, because now I'm very intentional, as you were saying, to clear that energy, to get into prayers and to get my mind straight. Even coming to record today, as I'm driving, I'm clearing energy, clearing space, and you can tell I come here, I get on, and my headspace wasn't right. I couldn't even read your bio, right? Because if my headspace is not right, I don't. So it's so important, right? But with that said, I'd love if you can share some wisdom to our listeners in terms of like for me, I stumbled upon it because I didn't know about it. I just happened to stumble upon it. Why am I feeling? And then I started doing research. But if somebody who doesn't know anything about clearing energy, or how do they start recognizing what's going on with them to get into a good habit and understanding that, it could impact our day and what we do?
Yeah, so a lot of people do end up stumbling on this. And the age groups that I find people have really dialed in, having good boundaries, is people who are 60 and up. So the people that I've observed, clients over many years, the most radiant, beautiful people that I've seen are aged 60 and up. So 60 to mid 90s, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like this sort of thing in this practice really takes time to cultivate. So for you stumbling on it, you could have had a big life event or something like that that happened to you that was just like, oh my gosh, I need help, and you started praying. This can take various different forms. I do find that people who are the most beautiful, radiant people I connect with, they do have a spiritual practice, and it's unique to them. It's not, a so-called very rigid, constructed, a religious box. My great grandmother was the second female ordained evangelical minister in Canada. So I have this lineage in me. And then I also have a great great grandmother who was a spiritualist from the UK, who was one of the first people to come over from North America. So personally, I have a really interesting background and lineage. And so depending on what your lineage is, what you resonate with is going to be different. Now, something simple for anyone to do to clear things out is actually just be in nature. And that's one of the things that I did to, escape a relationship that was just draining my energy, and to get in the fresh air, to get out of the city lights, get that natural sunlight, get away from EMFs. I would actually go off-roading into the wilderness in my lifted Land Rover, solo 4x4ing. I'm an outdoor enthusiast. And 200 miles into the woods, you wouldn't hear anything. And I love being in nature because nature is considered unemotional. So it's a great way to fill your cup up. And when we're interacting with people, just really notice who fills you up or also who drains you, and then start to have good boundaries around that. Prayer's been around for a couple thousand years.
Yes. Yes.
And it's going to be unique for everyone how to clear out the energies, but I actually do a lot of really cool things in my home to support that with energy coherence. And this is actually where some technology can happen and can support that. Really interesting stuff. But the prayer and spiritual component is such a key theme that I see in people who are living longer. They look beautiful. They have a beautiful, radiant energy to them. So for you stumbling on it, I'd be curious, what was that stumble that brought you to your knees?
She's interviewing me now, Lana. Switch. Um, I think it was at work. It was at work. I had no boundaries. This was about 10 years ago. And I would wake up not wanting to go to work. And I didn't realize what it was. And I really had to sit down, and because I never really sat down and think about my mental health. We take care of our physical health. I've always worked out, but I never even understood how to take care of my mental health. And I really had to sit down and think about why don't I want to go to work? And I tell my clients, this I'm a coach also, that sometimes our thoughts are like a rubber band in our head, and we have to, take one rubber band off at a time. It's like an onion, peel that onion and that layer off. And as I sat and I did some self coaching and I peeled that layer off, I just realized it was one person draining my energy. And that's when it first occurred to me, like, I have to actually distance myself and set my boundaries, as you said, with that person. And if I just do that, I would go into work and I'd be happy. But I had to think about it. Sometimes we go through our day, so many people, and I used to go through my day, something bothering me, and it's just churning in the back there, not even stopping to think and clear that energy out. Say, like, I need to put these boundaries in place, get good energy in place, say my prayers, bless and release, and then go about my day. So yeah, that's what it was. Thanks for asking.
Yes. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
So one of the key things you mentioned here was your workplace. And, I work with people across the globe, and I often ask what their lifestyle's like. I get into the key determinants of health
Mm-hmm.
because these impact the way that we live, the way that we feel, the way that we age. And what I love to see are people living their passion. So for you and I, with having our own shows, we get to talk about things that really excite us and have great conversations and learn along the way and know that we're sharing great things in the work that we do. We get to live our passion. Sure, it takes a lot of work behind the scenes. So that is a key component. You also, I'd be curious, because I'm sure a lot of listeners could relate to this. What happened when you left that workplace and had those bad boundaries with the individual? What happened to your skin? What happened to your body? Did you notice anything shift?
I can tell you, I actually left the corporate world in 2020 in the middle of COVID. And mentally, things shift. I can tell you that when you're in the grind and you're running and running, you don't realize that how difficult things are. And when you get out of it, I took a look back and said, I could never do that again. I don't know. We're running on adrenaline and we're doing this, and the mindset is very powerful. I had more mental changes than physical changes. The mindset is very powerful, where I had to have a single track mind and ran with the craziness. I was a 24/7 employee and ran with this. And after I left, I realized I was done with that era of my life. I cannot go back and do that. So mentally, I was in a way better place. Um, I don't know if my skin changed, but I've always physically work out and taken good care of my skin. But I have to tell you something I
Mm-hmm.
learned recently, and you're gonna really like this, and I want you to meet my friend. She came into my house. I was always having headaches. You know where I'm going with this. And she came into my house and she said, I need to show you something. And she brought this little, is it called an EMF machine? A little, you know what I'm talking about?
Like an EMF reader.
A radar. Yeah, wasn't well versed. I still am not. And she took it around my house and she showed me where this radiation was coming from and giving me a headache. And found out it was actually coming from my office, which I sit like 8 hours a day in my office. And I had this, I have my wireless cable box right there. And she said, Sally, look, it went up over 100. This thing was going crazy. And she said, this is where your headache is coming from. And like you, she knew it was bad for my skin also, the radiation. And she taught me, don't sit in your office all day or go hardwire. So I totally get where you're coming from with all of this, because she took it around my house and really showed me why I was sick so much. Isn't that interesting?
Mm-hmm. You should arrange a spa date with that friend of yours because she probably needs her cup filled. She's probably a helper. So that's a good friend to have, someone who really cares about your well-being. EMFs, I personally, well, first of all, I see the shifts that you went through in a lot of women that work in the corporate world, as well as a lot of stay-at-home moms that hold down the entire fort at home. And what this actually gets to is being too much in our masculine.
Mm,
So for you, corporate world, being on call 24 hours a day, that's working like a man. And women can't operate that way. We're cyclic, rhythmic beings. We need time to rest, especially when it comes to our cycles. So I have a lot of women working with me, and they're noticing rapid aging, changes with their skin. They're like, I feel like I've aged overnight, especially around perimenopause and menopause and postmenopause and all that stuff. So that's why I really like to, ask those questions. What's going on in the life? Are things balanced? Are you in your beautiful, loving, smooth, feminine energy, or are you working like a man and highly your masculine and tanking your adrenals and your nervous system shot? I see that so much. And then you mentioned something else, the repeated negative thoughts. Now, because of your background in mental health, I know that you'll appreciate this whole thing that sometimes we do when we get together with our girlfriends. We talk about the ex, right? Rehash over this, rehash over that. We're looking in the rearview mirror instead of being in the present moment, or dreaming and manifesting of the future. So the negative emotional states, again, are something that's going to age you. So all this stuff, reducing oxidative stress, reducing electromagnetic frequency exposure, positive emotional states, making good decisions all day, every day, including the people you're around, is going to be conducive to actually looking your best and feeling your best. The EMF stuff is really key. So getting back to about 2016, I felt pretty sensitive towards electromagnetics. So I would get in nature all the time, 4x4. I'm a small island girl growing up, big tomboy. And I just always felt better when I had a full day in nature. I was more productive that week. And the EMFs on the skin is actually a very real thing. There's a number of PubMed studies that actually look at how electromagnetic radiation and wireless cellular radiation create more inflammation, redness, dryness on the eyes, as well as eye irritation. We're even seeing ocular diseases like cataracts, which is an 80-year-old disease, in 40-year-olds now. So picking up a reader for yourself and knowing where the hotspots are in your home, turning your router off at night, not holding your phone to your ear. Forget about those smartwatches. Distance is your friend when it comes to that type of tech. And funnily enough, under this beautiful dress shirt that I'm wearing, I'm actually wearing EMF silver threaded shorts. And I wear EMF protective clothing all the time, actually, and get outside, barefoot, ground. What this does is when you're on your phone for 5 minutes, let alone wearing a smartwatch all day, please stop wearing this. What it's doing is it's changing your blood. And if you want good blood flow to your brain, for resilience, for mental health, if you want good blood flow to your skin, for beautiful, vibrant looking skin, not gray and flat, then you need good blood flow. So 5 minutes on your phone, your red blood cells start to stick together. They form these chains called rouleau, and then you get clotting factors. So you get a reduction of blood flow to your organs, as well as detoxification of metabolic waste products. So I personally think that EMFs are like the smoking of our generation. So if you want a good mind, you want a great body, you want great skin, it's a good idea to start to reduce that stuff.
Wow. As you are talking, my friend that came to my house, she's just coming to mind. She's told me a lot of this. You know what I'd like to do? I'd like to have the two of you back on the podcast, because I'd like to bring awareness to this. Like, I am not well versed in it. She is the geek when it comes to this. And you are even like high octane on this subject. I would love to have you back with her, because I feel like we haven't even scratched the surface, Rachel.
Oh, you never know. Maybe her and I are meant to connect and do something fun together. That's kind of the cool thing about
I think we are. I think we are. I need to get us on a call. And show you what we're doing so you could see it, and let's do this again. So with that, do you have anything else for our audience?
Yeah, with the lighting stuff is really key. So I know you and we have our studio lighting. The LED lighting is going to mess with sleep as well as with the skin. So this is where your skincare comes in, antioxidants in your products, mineral sunscreen, love zinc sunscreen, by the way, especially on the face, neck, chest, and hands, because the LEDs are actually a form of radiation. So if you want to look your best, be able to be resilient, be able to overcome whatever life gives you. Stress is a sign of being alive, by the way. not always a bad thing. A little bit of stress can be good for the body. So that's why I'm wearing these glasses actually to help block blue light so that I sleep better. And it also protects the skin around the eyes. So all these things that I do behind the scenes to reduce oxidative stress at the end of the day are going to help me look good and feel good. And you just basically proved something. So when you're operating in this really charged up electromagnetic state, you're balanced, you're grounded, body, mind, spirit, energy, you're using non-toxic products, you're eating in accordance with your body's epigenetics, you are simply going to have this different energy coming off of you. And you'll go to events and you'll have the right people coming up to you in the right way at the right time. So that's the cool thing about this stuff is when you feel good, you're going to be more confident, which is then going to allow you to build your community, which is actually a deep survival need, so that we are in connection with people who make us laugh. We got to have these connections. So I look forward to that.
Did you just read my mind? This is my, you know what my 2 words is for next year? I already have them. Strong community. And this is so powerful what you just said, because I have noticed that I'm starting to attract people like you and different people, women around. And my goal is to take all those women and just build this strong, strong community of ladies who will be there and support each other. So I think you just manifested what I'm thinking. So,
Yeah, it's kind of neat once you're operating in this way and you go somewhere, you meet someone. I spoke at an event. I actually shared for the first time a research article on oxidative stress status and its impacts on skin aging. It's open source. Anyone can read it. Highly recommend it. Reading that to get the details on air, water, lighting, electromagnetics, and detoxing. But then after I spoke and I talked about this, cultivating your radiance is going to help build your confidence because you'll look better, and you make more friends. And so I finished speaking on stage and these two ladies came up to me, and you'll never guess this. I just moved somewhere new, and guess where they were from? The same place I just moved. At this event, probably 5,000 people, right? What are the chances?
yeah,
So I
yeah,
just thought that was
yeah. Well, this was so great, Rachel. I do want you to come back and talk more and go a little bit in details on these topics. But for now, what's a quick takeaway for our audience?
yeah, the quick takeaway is don't be afraid of aging, but looking good and feeling your best isn't going to happen by chance. It's by choice.
Yeah.
And starting with eating the right foods, using clean skincare, that's where I come in. Looking at rejuvenation in a way to promote collagen, all of that. There's so much nonsense out there, rejuvenation wise, a lot of noise, a lot of trendy gimmicks and stuff. So it's just the more conscious you are, the better consumer you're not going to be. So you're not going to be buying this, buying that. You're not going to be so distracted.
Yeah.
So it's focusing on your passions, doing what makes you happy, what lights you up, as one of my favorite authors likes to say. And the more of us that are operating in a radiant way, we're simply going to have great exchanges with other people. Yeah. And then they're going to say, hey, what are you doing? And then you can share some of the healthy things that you're doing. So the more of us who aren't scrambled psychologically, distracted by this, distracted by that, the next big thing, right? That are grounded, centered, balanced, and aligned, more of us, the world's going to be a better place. So that's kind of like the underpinning message I'd love to share with everybody to inspire. And don't be fooled. I've had my share of struggles that I talk about in my Audible, and long fasts that I did, and all these things, what I overcame with resilience. But I wouldn't have had that resilience if I didn't do the work behind the scenes too. So it's about always being ready, always being resilient to always be beautiful and not have your skin break out or freak out with some type of inflammation when a little bit of a stressor comes along. So that no matter what, you'll still maintain your beauty, you'll still maintain your good looks. You might get some fine lines and wrinkles as you age, but it adds character.
Wow. Thank you so much, Rachel. I appreciate you. And my takeaway would be, in order to clear your energy and to be in a healthy mindset, one way you can start doing that, I'm going to take this from Rachel, is go out in nature. Go out in nature. Always, it will uplift your spirits and put you in a better place. And with that, it's a wrap.
Thanks for having me, Sally.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. All this stuff you were saying is the same stuff my friend has been telling me. She
I
started
love
telling
it.